It's time for your local Farm News Week in Review here on AM 960 KLTF. This week in Farm News. On Thursday, the Commodity Credit Corporation released its October lending rates. The CCC borrowing rate-based interest charge for October was set at 0.375%. Crop year commodity loans for less than 1 year was set at 1.375%. Farm storage facility loans for 7-year loan terms was at 1.875%, down from last month. Farm storage facility loans with 10-year loan terms was at 2.125%, also down, while farm storage facility loans with 12-year loan terms was at 2.375%. That was up from 2.25% last month. More information can be found by contacting your local Farm Service Agency office. A group of evangelical Christian leaders has launched an effort to educate people in the pews on a biblical imperative to take care of animals, including in agriculture. The initiative, called Every Living Thing, was launched on Wednesday with the announcement of a statement signed by top evangelical scholars and pastors. The statement doesn't take positions on any policy issues, but does call for the protection and preservation of all kinds of animals God has created while prioritizing human needs. The initiative grew out of a meeting of faith leaders organized by the Humane Society of the United States in 2011. Every Living Thing, which is run by a Christian consulting firm, the Clapham Group, will sponsor events promoting discussions about animal stewardship. The statement's initial signees include Russell Moore, president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, an arm of the Southern Baptist Convention; Albert Mohler, president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky; theologian Timothy George; and megachurch pastor Bill Hybels. Mohler, who has 107,000 Twitter followers, endorsed the statement on his account on Wednesday. Every Living Thing commissioned a poll that indicated strong support among Protestant pastors for animal welfare in general. 73% of the 1,000 pastors surveyed, a group that includes pastors of mainline denominations, agreed with the statement that the way we treat animals reflects our care for human beings. Conversely, 75% disagreed with the statement that God is indifferent about how people behave toward animals. Americans are paying slightly less for a supermarket basket of 16 staples than they did a year ago, thanks in part to lower prices for dairy, bacon, and apples, and a drop in energy prices. This all according to the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual Fall Harvest Market Basket Survey. The survey results were released on Monday and showed the total average cost of 16 food items was $54.14, down 12 cents or less than 1% from last year's survey. A total of 69 shoppers in 24 states participated in the latest survey, which was conducted back in September. 10 items decreased in price. Whole milk was down 17% to $3.14 a gallon. Bacon fell 11%. Apples were down 7%. Shredded cheddar cheese was down 5%. Flour was down 4%. And baked salad was down 4%. Vegetable oil was down 3%. And russet potatoes were down 3%. And while the price of 6 items were increased, the price of eggs went up by 56% to a total of $3.04 a dozen. Orange juice went up 7%, and ground chuck was up 6%, while toasted oat cereal was up 3%, and sirloin tip roast was up 3%, while sliced deli ham was up just 1%. AFBF attributed lower milk and pork prices to higher supply and said low energy prices, which affect the cost of processing, packaging, and transportation of food, also had a hand in keeping the prices low. Americans spend just under 10% of their disposable annual income on food, the lowest average of any country in the world. But only 16% of a consumer's retail food expenditures ends up in farmers' pockets, compared to the 1970s when they received about a third of the proceeds, this according to the USDA's revised Food Dollars series. Using this 16% figure and the AFBF survey results, farmers received only $8.66 out of this year's fall food basket value. The viruses that appeared in the United States in the spring of 2013 and killed millions of piglets may have entered the country in so-called flexible intermediate bulk containers, essentially very big bags used to transport sand for flood control, soybeans, and all kinds of bulk material, this according to a recent USDA report. The report, which was done by the department's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, says evidence collected in its investigation suggests that the FIBCs could be potentially contaminated in their origin country and then reused after arrival in the United States. The bags are designed for reuse and are not usually cleaned or disinfected between uses in the United States. The first cases of the swine enteric coronavirus disease were confirmed in the United States in the spring of 2013. The viruses, which include the porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, quickly spread to swine farms throughout the country, killing millions of animals, including more than 7 million piglets. Hogs usually recovered from the gastrointestinal distress and dehydration caused by the viruses, which were most often fatal to pre-weaned piglets. APHIS said it examined 17 potential root cause scenarios, including accidental or intentional introduction by people, contaminated feed supplements, and contaminated semen or germplasm. The investigation did not uncover definite proof of any route of entry, and the agency said, but a small number of scenarios were deemed plausible. Among these, the scenario that best fit the criteria for virus entry into the United States was virus spread through reuse of FIBCs. In its release, APHIS did note that it had been working with the states and the swine industry to slow the spread of the disease, including enhanced biosecurity measures. The agency also issued a federal order back in June requiring the reporting of SECD cases to assist with tracking and understanding the viruses. The number of new cases has dropped dramatically in the past year. Republican senators used a congressional hearing on Wednesday to press an Army representative for an explanation on why the Corps of Engineers opted to support the Environmental Protection Agency's Waters of the United States rule despite opposition in some internal memos. GOP members of the Subcommittee on Fisheries, Water, and Wildlife peppered Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works Joe Allen Darcy with questions about the Army's role in the rule, while their Democratic counterparts questioned why the hearing was happening in the first place. WOTUS, or the Clean Water Rule as it's called by the EPA, went into effect in 37 of the 50 states at the end of August. A federal judge in North Dakota granted an injunction against its implementation in the remaining 13 states. The rule redefines the waters of the United States that can be regulated under the Clean Water Act. Most of the agricultural community and many Republicans say the rule represents a vast and unwarranted expansion of federal power over private lands. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack this week announced that the USDA had awarded nearly $20 million through 385 grants to help support the startup or expansion of rural small businesses. These grants will strengthen the economic fabric of our rural towns and communities by providing capital to small and emerging businesses, Vilsack said during a visit to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. The USDA is awarding the grants through the Rural Business Development Grant Program. Recipients may use the funds to provide technical assistance, training, and job creation activities. The Value Added Agricultural Development Center, which is based in Pierre, South Dakota, is receiving a $49,500 grant to teach local businesses in Lolago, Lakota County, which is on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, how to commercially process and successfully market buffalo meat. In April of this year, the Obama administration designated the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation as one of 8 new Promise Zones. Promise Zones are high-poverty communities where the federal government partners with local leaders to increase economic activity, improve educational opportunities, leverage private investment, reduce violent crime, enhance public health, and address other community-identified priorities. While Vilsack was in South Dakota, he also highlighted the USDA's work to expand economic development opportunities for Native Americans and rural residents throughout the state. For example, he announced that the Olaga Sioux Indian tribe is receiving a $1.85 million grant to construct a storage building and sell for a solid waste landfill. Other RBDG recipients include Boyne City, Michigan, which has been selected to receive a $30,000 grant to provide equipment for an incubator kitchen for local foods. The town of Princess Anne, Maryland, is receiving a $21,400 grant to buy furnishings and equipment for the historic Washington Hotel. Funding for each award announced this week is contingent upon the recipient meeting the terms of the grant agreement. The USDA's Rural Business Development Grant Program is one of the several that support rural economic development. Since the start of the Obama administration, the USDA's Rural Business Cooperative Service has helped 85,000 rural businesses. And that concludes this week's local Farm News Weekend Review here on AM 960 KLTF. Farm news available online 24/7 at fallsradio.com. Also at fallsradio.com, you can check out our YouTube channel, or go to YouTube and search for Little Falls Radio Ag. This is Farm Director Scott Colum saying, thanks for listening.